What's up guys, it's Caitlin Bea and welcome back to my channel. Sorry for the weird background. It's quarantine, okay? So anything goes. I really just wanted to like sit in my comfies and on my couch here in my office because it's the comfiest. It's way comfier than sitting on the ground, even though the background would be cuter, but like it's quarantine. So yeah, wow, a lot has happened since the last video that I filmed. So I hope everybody is staying safe and healthy, cooped up at home, and hopefully this will entertain you for the time being. I have a lot of notes written down for this video because this one is all about how I cured my acne with my diet, which is definitely like there's the most that goes into this component, the diet component, if you will, of clearing your skin, at least for me. But hopefully you're staying home and you've got a lot of time to kill, so we can hang out. This is video 2 of my skin clearing series, so if you haven't seen video 1, I will put that in the info bar above. Why can I still not remember which side this is? I'll also link that video down below. I go through the 5 things that cured my hormonal acne. But this video, I am just solely talking about the diet, how I actually believe I created my hormonal imbalance and adult acne in general with my diet, and exactly how I shifted my diet to actually clear my skin and maintain my clear skin. So this is going to be an in-depth video, so let's just get into it. Disclaimer, I am not a doctor, I'm not a nutritionist, I'm not a dietitian. This is purely my experience, and I'm not telling you that this is the one way to do it and this is the way you should do it. We all have different needs, we're all so different, so just because one thing works for me doesn't mean it's gonna work for you. And as always, do your own research, talk to your doctor, do what makes you feel good. All right, let's chat hormones, okay? I don't know about you, but I feel cheated when it comes to hormones. I mean, we learned about it a little bit like growing up, like in health class or whatever, but I didn't know how much went into our hormones and our bodies as women until I read this book specifically about hormones and healing your hormones. We obviously have 4 phases in our cycle, and I really only knew about like the ovulatory phase and obviously the menstrual phase, but I didn't really know what was happening with my hormones during the other parts of my cycle and how foods actually affect your cycle at different parts and that you should be eating for your cycle. Like, what? I've shared this book with you on my Instagram in the past and it's already helped so many of you, so I'm going to include that here. This is the Period Repair Manual. It's natural treatment for better hormones and better periods. I've never had a period problem personally. I've always been really regular, but even if you don't have, you know, like PCOS or endometriosis, or are coming off of hormonal birth control, I think every woman should read this book. It just goes in depth about what's actually happening during your cycle, what foods are inflammatory, and just how to really treat your body naturally, which for me, I'm like all about if I can do it naturally, I'd rather do that. I will link this down below. It is such an amazing resource. So about my hormonal imbalance, in 2015, at the end of 2015, I started transitioning into a plant-based diet and I wanted to do it the healthiest way. I obviously was doing it slowly, but I started researching different vegan YouTubers and what I eat in a day videos to kind of see like what was out there, what my options were, get some recipe ideas. You know, I stumbled upon like the raw vegan community, the high carb, low fat, like the keto vegans. I ended up really resonating with the high carb, low fat vegan community, if you will, which is HCLF. I also saw a lot of these YouTubers recommending this book called The Starch Solution, which basically goes into depth about the high carb, low fat lifestyle. And I definitely bought into that for a while. I bought the book, loved it. If you watch my old videos, I pretty much did like only eat high carb, low fat. I kind of had it ingrained in my head that like fat was the devil. I had no cooking oils whatsoever. I only steamed my vegetables or cooked with water. I hardly had any avocado or nuts. And I gotta be honest, I did feel pretty great eating this way for a while. Like I did feel energetic and I felt like, you know, satiated for the most part. But after about a year and a half maybe of eating this way is when I started developing my acne. So I was like, okay, what is happening? Looking back now with all of, you know, the research that I've done and all that I've learned since then, I definitely know I was creating a hormonal imbalance by the way I was eating, because I was eating in a way that was really detrimental to my hormones. I created this imbalance, I think, mainly because I was restricting my intake of fat so much. And I learned, especially in this book too, and other research pretty much all aligns that like women especially we need fat, like we need healthy fats even even more than men, just as a great building block for estrogen and progesterone. Definitely check this out if you're interested in learning more. For me, my acne was mainly like in this bottom half right here. So it was along my lower cheeks, my jawline, and my chin, which for every face mapping I've researched and talking to estheticians, they've all concluded that I do suffer from hormonal acne. And honestly, most of our acne is hormonal acne. But the great news is, if you do have hormonal acne, is that it is treatable. And yes, it takes consistency and dedication and time to do that. But honestly, if you want to clear your skin, I mean, it's so worth it. Your skin is a two-sided organ. So it's really important that you focus not only what you're doing on the outside and like your skincare routine and your environment, but it's really important how you feel your body internally. And honestly, you can't really do just one or the other. That's why I've separated this video series into 5 parts. My first tip is to keep a food log. Keeping a food log for me was really helpful in helping me pinpoint like what foods were my triggers. Write everything down, even if you're just doing this for like a couple weeks or even a month. I just got a little notebook and started recording what I was eating and how I felt afterwards. So either immediately afterward, if you felt like symptoms, you could record that, or even like an hour. So that could be for better or for worse. Some foods I ate, I was like, wow, I feel like so energetic today. I feel like on top of the world. I feel satiated. I'm like focused. Other times I was eating, I noticed that I felt hungry almost like 30 minutes after. I wasn't satiated, or I felt really sharp pains in my stomach, or I felt really bloated. Like that is a symptom to be aware of. Is there a common factor of this made me feel like crap one day and then 5 days later I ate the same ingredient and I also felt like crap? Maybe I'm intolerant to that ingredient and I should omit it from my diet. So the biggest change I made during this time was I balanced my diet. I used MyFitnessPal to kind of like see the patterns and just really focus on trying to hit more of a balanced diet. Now, if you eat a animal, like standard American diet, if you eat, you know, animal proteins and stuff, then you're probably going to naturally have a more balanced diet already. Again, I think you should eat exactly how whatever makes you feel the best, the most energetic and thriving. For me personally, eating a balanced diet is what makes me feel so much better and honestly helped clear my skin so much. I definitely incorporated more fat into my diet. So I'm now focusing on healthy fat, avocado. I eat a lot of raw nuts, and I also love almond butter, cashew butter, and sunflower butter. I actually don't eat much peanut butter because I learned that they're actually peanuts are highly inflammatory and they increase your androgen hormones. So if you're someone who's suffering from hormonal acne, it could be caused by peanut butter, which is so sad because peanut butter is so good, or just peanuts in general. But again, it's kind of the process of elimination. For me, switching to almond butter, cashew butter, just as good as peanut butter to me, so it's not like a huge deal. I also will use olive oil or avocado oil in moderation, definitely not in excess. Like I feel like a lot of people cook with so much oil. Otherwise, I will just steam my vegetables in water. And then protein is also an important macro. I will always incorporate protein with every meal, especially in my first meal of the day. In 2018, after Alex and I were traveling like Europe for a couple of months, that's when I came back and I was like, oh my gosh, I feel like crap. I'm so bloated. I ate so horribly while I was traveling. At that point, I discovered Kate Flower. She is a raw vegan YouTuber. I guess she's not raw anymore, like not totally raw, but she came out with an ebook called Freedom Foods. I will link it down below. I discovered it around this time when I was like looking for a little like reset, like a little boost for a week or two, just to kind of feel better, reset my body after traveling. And I did that for about 2 weeks and I noticed a huge difference in my skin. It was like, that was kind of the first time that I really started noticing my skin clearing. I noticed like no new breakouts during that time and my current ones were healing. That was really exciting for me. That was kind of the first time I really like saw big changes happening. By no means am I telling you to go raw vegan. Okay, that's not realistic. It's actually harder for your body to digest raw foods for the most part. And some foods are better for you cooked, like it has more nutrients when you cook it, and then some foods have more health benefits when you eat them raw. So I'm not here saying like raw is the way to go. I will say for those 2 weeks, like it really helped me like reset and make better decisions moving forward. Since then, I pretty much eat 1 raw meal a day. If I'm eating like 3 meals, if I'm not intermittent fasting or something, then I will eat usually a fruit and nut bowl in the morning or a smoothie, and that usually keeps me really full because I have like an element of protein in there, whether it be protein powder or almond butter, what you put in your body first thing after a night of sleep, because obviously you're fasting for the whole night and not eating. Your body like readily absorbs whatever you first put in your body, so it's really important what you're eating first. Now I want to talk about inflammatory foods, foods that I started to avoid or make healthier swaps. Dairy obviously is the biggest, in my opinion, food trigger and like food intolerance of anything. One of my best friends, shout out to you, Rachel, had cystic acne all throughout growing up. She saw a dermatologist. She's got like harsh prescriptions, $800 creams that she was prescribed to, and literally nothing helped her cystic acne whatsoever until college. And she tried going dairy free, and literally within 2 weeks, like her cysts were healing so much, almost gone. Within a couple months, like she had the most clear, perfect skin. Obviously I gave up dairy years ago, so that wasn't really an issue for me, but for a lot of people, that is what causes your acne. So I highly recommend removing that from your diet first and seeing if your skin changes. And dairy actually has a naturally occurring morphine in it, so it is like truly addicting, but it's meant to create a bond between the calf, like the infant, and the nursing mother. But luckily there are so many great alternatives these days, which I need to do a video on like my favorite alternatives, because obviously some suck. I would go for like a clean almond milk, oat milk. You can make your own at home. You can get the Milk brand, is really clean. It's the most expensive, of course, but try to go for like the cleanest one that you can, because a lot of them do have oils in it. The issue with skin though is it can take up to 4 months for a breakout to show on your skin, which is so frustrating, because I know a lot of times we're like, oh, if we see a breakout the next morning, we're like, oh, it's because I ate this last night, I'm gonna give that up. But honestly, it can take up to 4 months. Process of elimination is the way to go. When I first transitioned to a plant-based diet, I was very much focused on like vegan alternatives. So like vegan meats, vegan chicken tenders. With that, I was obviously eating a lot of processed foods, which is really inflammatory. A lot of times it can be packed with a lot of excess sodium and sugars and oils. If I am buying anything like processed or packaged, if I just want like something quick, always make sure to read my labels and ingredients and make sure it's the smallest list possible, that I can recognize the ingredients. And if there is an oil in there by any chance, then it should be like the last ingredient. Reducing my intake of processed foods like cleared my skin so much. And I just focused on eating mostly whole, clean, plant-based foods. The more whole foods that you eat, the better. Processed sugar and starchy carbs can do a number on your hormones because they are so inflammatory. All drivers of acne can be put in check by reducing your intake of sugar. So I think that's also a really great place to start, is by reducing your intake. I know some people will say that fruit is bad for you. To me, sugar from whole foods are totally fine and haven't like affected my skin at all. I love fruits. Some of them have a lot of antioxidants, so I'm still a big fruit advocate. If I want to sweeten something up, I will use monk fruit sweetener, which is just kind of like a natural plant-based alternative made from monk fruit. I actually personally love the taste of that. I am not a fan of stevia. I think it tastes so bad. Obviously, you don't have to be perfect with this. Sugar is in so much though, so just kind of being more cautious, reading your labels and knowing, you know, all of the alternate names for sugar, because there are so many, and just making healthier swaps. So if you're someone who likes to enjoy like some chocolate at the end of the night, having something like dark chocolate is going to be a healthier alternative than milk chocolate. Gluten for me is tricky. Obviously this can be a huge food sensitivity for a lot of people, but for me, I'm not positive yet if I am intolerant to gluten, but I do know that when I eat a lot of it, like if I go out to eat and have a huge thing of pasta, like I do often feel horrible afterward and I get really sharp pains in my stomach. I just made healthier alternatives in general. So instead of having like white bread or pasta, I will eat pasta made from chickpeas or lentils. Honestly, it tastes just as good, if not better to me. Like I don't notice a difference with that. It also has a lot of protein in that, but I do really like sourdough bread. Sourdough doesn't give me any sharp pains that I've noticed. It's easier to digest than regular bread. I also reduced my soy intake. So this was pretty easy once I started greatly reducing processed foods from my diet. It's also found in a lot of vegan alternatives. So instead of buying like a pre-made vegan meat, I will make my own like black bean burger, for example. And obviously I don't do this, like I'm not 100% at this. I still love my Impossible foods. I just greatly reduced that, and so I'm not having it all the time. If I do, it's kind of like a treat. Soy is also just really hard for our bodies to digest, and it has a lot of estrogen. So it really affects our hormone levels and can cause acne. If you're switching out dairy, don't go for a soy milk. I still eat tofu, but not every day or not even necessarily every week. But if you're focusing more on just whole foods in general, this should be pretty easy to reduce your intake of that. And the last thing I greatly reduced was my intake of inflammatory oils. These ones are common common vegetable oils such as canola oil and safflower and sunflower oil are really the most inflammatory, but also rice bran oil, peanut oil are also really inflammatory, but I mainly stick to those three: canola, safflower, and sunflower oil. And it's so crazy because I didn't realize like how much foods those oils were in until I started really looking for them when I was grocery shopping. But it's just something to be aware of. Obviously this is kind of like specific, but some of you may be cooking with one of those vegetable oils, so something to note if you can swap it for a healthier one such as avocado oil or olive oil. I will get the most like sharp pains after eating tortilla chips. It's insane, so I really try to not have them, and if I am, I'm just gonna have like a couple. A lot of tortilla chips are high in these inflammatory oils. If I had to describe my diet, I guess I eat a primarily plant-based diet. It's balanced, it's low glycemic for the most part. I incorporated more healthy fats and protein and significantly reduced my intake of processed foods and instead focus more on clean, whole foods. And I also intermittent fast, which will be my next video that I will dive specifically into. Also, I know this can seem like daunting with how many like things that could potentially be triggering to your body, but if you're interested, I've heard a lot of people have great experiences doing the Whole30 challenge, but it basically eliminates all of these things. If you are struggling on how to exactly pinpoint like what foods are your triggers, besides doing the elimination diet slash like Whole30, I picked up Viome recently, which is a gut sensitivity, gut intelligence test. And this one is the food sensitivity intelligence test. So these are totally different and I got them to try, and I will also hopefully do a video and get my results by the end of this series. I was just really fascinated after listening to this guy talk who developed these. Gut intelligence test will tell you exactly what your microbiome is made of, like your good bacteria and your bad bacteria. It'll tell you what foods are exactly your superfoods and what you should be eating more of that will like fuel your good gut bacteria. And it will also tell you the foods that are really detrimental to your gut. And then the food sensitivity test, it will tell you what foods it thinks that you are intolerant to or that you should reduce. And I know like food sensitivity tests aren't necessarily like 100% accurate. So I just got this kind of as like a little experiment because I obviously have my own conclusions about what foods I'm intolerant to. And I also know for a fact which ones I am intolerant to. So I kind of got this one to see like if it aligns with my own conclusions. I will totally share my results and if I think this is legit. All right, that was such a long video. If you're still here, I love you, you're amazing. Next week's video is going to be diving into intermittent fasting, exactly what that is, how I started incorporating that into my diet and how it's benefited my skin as well. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video and I will see you in video 3. Mwah!